Today, we're going to tackle a topic that's becoming increasingly important in the world of cloud computing, infrastructure as code, or IAC, and this big decision you make when you start adopting IAC. Building your own IAC backend from scratch, what we're going to call the DIY route, or going with a managed solution like Plumi Cloud.
This is a really critical question up front, especially when you're weighing these pros and cons, you're designing your implementation for the first time.
Yeah. So whether you just want to see what goes on under the covers of Plumi Cloud, or you're working on a cloud infrastructure project and you want to know some of the hurdles or dangers to avoid, that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover some surprising insights, some hidden costs, some security risks, and even how IAC can impact your whole engineering team.
Yeah, and the people part is huge, right?
Yeah, for sure, right? The cost of people's time, and also if you want our project to succeed, you need to make the people happy. So by the end of this, you'll be able to make a more informed decision about which approach to choose.
And before we jump into the nitty-gritty details of DIY versus cloud, let's take a step back. For those that are new to this, give us all a quick primer on what infrastructure code actually is.
Infrastructure as code allows you to define your entire infrastructure: servers, databases, networks, storage, all the security that goes with that. Define it all in code. And this code can then be treated like code is. You can version control it, you can test it, you can have automatic deploys.
Yeah, I mean, this key advantage of automation and consistency, you're not manually going into consoles, setting up CLI interfaces. You've got a set of code basically that can be executed and create that maintained infrastructure in a very repeatable and predictable way.
Once you have all that code, you need a place to run it. You need a way to manage it. And this is where organizations face this choice, because you need to decide whether you're going to manage your own IAC backend from scratch, or you're going to use a managed solution like Plumi Cloud. Obviously, spoiler alert, I think Plumi Cloud is a great solution. But this DIY approach, people like it because there's a certain amount of control and customization. You have the freedom to build exactly what you need, tailored to your specific needs. I mean, and some organizations are very unique or have very unique compliance needs. So building it yourself can be appealing. But I want people to go into it eyes open, because sometimes people approach it because they think there's a potential for cost savings. I really don't think that's the case.
I think a lot of teams go into this DIY approach in the early phases thinking it's going to be a little more simple than it really is. And they may think that, we're going to save money, we're going to have a little more control here, but it feels like there's a lot of hidden costs that aren't immediately apparent. I mean, that's sort of the point of today's discussion, right?
The most significant cost that people don't account for, at least to me, is engineering time. And the engineering time that goes into maintenance being the biggest bucket of that, right? Because teams need not to just build an initial system for storing some state file somewhere, but it gets more complicated than that. You also need to develop and maintain all the supporting tooling for monitoring, for debugging, for optimization, for rolling out these changes. It's like maintaining your own car. There's not just the initial purchase price of the car, but there's the ongoing maintenance costs. There's the repairs. There's the time keeping everything up and running smoothly.
And this is where having a managed solution like Plumi Cloud is a different approach, right?
Exactly, because it's managed. You're essentially outsourcing all of these complexities to the experts who handle maintenance, who handle security and compliance and scaling. And that's us here. Yes, there's a subscription cost that you're going to pay to use a solution like that, but you avoid all these hidden expenses that come with DIY. And we're the experts at handling that. Teams can focus on building and deploying applications rather than maintaining infrastructure tooling, because these hidden costs tend to compound over time. Once you go a certain route, it's hard to switch back. And this can impact everything. It can impact team productivity. It can impact your security posturing. And especially as organizations try to keep pace with evolving best practices and security requirements, it's just a lot to do.
Ongoing maintenance is a huge issue here, but let's get into some of the specific challenges that teams face. Like, let's just put sort of a finer point on it.
The starting point for me is always going to be state management. That's kind of the heart of what an IAC backend is effectively doing it. Because you have this state that's a snapshot of your entire infrastructure configuration, captures all of your resources and their settings. Managing the state is crucial because it's not just your current configuration, but you also have just probably multiple people trying to simultaneously make changes. You have to have backups of this for disaster recovery. And it just needs to be always available. You need an HA, a high available solution, so that your infrastructure is resilient, so that you can still make changes to your infrastructure if something goes wrong, right? You don't want this complicated loop where something's wrong with your infrastructure and then you can't make changes to it because you're storing your state file on that infrastructure that you just broke.
So what happens when state management goes wrong?
One particularly sobering case was Spotify. I guess they accidentally deleted two-thirds of their production Kubernetes cluster due to a merge conflict with their state. And this wasn't a small incident. This was a major technology company, right? Like I'm sure you use Spotify, James. But this kind of incident is exactly why many organizations turn to a managed solution like Pulumi Cloud, where these complexities are handled automatically through features like automatic backups and replication and just really robust recovery systems.
That sounds like a horrible incident, right? No one wants to have to spend hours or potentially days or weeks kind of recovering for something like that. But also, there's just like an ongoing day-to-day operational impact that teams face.
I feel like that is where the impact is most significant because with a DIY approach, you need to just spend hours building and maintaining these tools for troubleshooting and monitoring and just dealing with your infrastructure. Pulumi Cloud, on the other hand, provides features. Not only is there just the basics you need to do like deployment, but you also have instant search, you have analytics, you have things like insights where you can see all your resources across multiple cloud providers all in one nice place. And you have AI driven recommendations that can even feed on that. And this means that teams can quickly identify potential issues before they become problems. For smaller teams, especially, having these tools readily available can be the difference between spending their time just messing around with infrastructure versus focusing on actual business objectives and getting things done.
Looking past the like day-to-day operational overhead that you're talking about here, let's talk about security, right? Teams are stretched really thin, maintaining everything they're doing, delivering value to the business. How do teams deal with security and maintain security best practice?
Security is paramount when it comes to IAC. And it becomes really critical when you think about the fact that your IAC backend essentially holds the keys to your entire cloud kingdom. If somebody could compromise this backend, potentially they could gain control of your cloud resources, right? I mean, they could deploy things into your cloud accounts. It's a single point of failure that needs to be protected with the utmost care. And this is something you need to keep in mind when you're rolling your own solution.
So when you're doing a DIY solution, what are the main security responsibilities the team's going to have to take on?
Basically, all of the security responsibilities. You need to have access control. You need to deal with encryption. You probably need to have vulnerability scanning to just keep an eye on that. You need to have intrusion detection. Probably you need to stay current with the latest security best practices and just make sure that the way you're structuring your infrastructure is meeting compliance standards.
So on the topic of security, we have this other tool called Pulumi CrossGuard. Can you tell me more about that?
CrossGuard is super cool. Josh here is always saying that it's such an underrated product. And I think that's totally the case because CrossGuard is just guardrails for your infrastructure. It lets you define policies and you can define these policies in code. And the policies are about how your infrastructure is provisioned and managed. So this is where you hit that compliance aspect. You can create a policy that ensures that S3 buckets are encrypted by default, or one that prevents anyone from deploying resources without proper security tags, and on and on. And there's some pre-selected ones you could grab or ones that people have shared, open source. But it goes beyond just preventing mistakes. It helps you enforce compliance, and it helps you make sure that you're hitting industry standards automatically.
You touched on another security topic earlier, right? Secrets management. We've seen cases where attackers gained entire control of your AWS account. You accidentally left something in a state file. That state file gets committed to a code repository that's made public on the internet, right? How does Pulumi handle the sensitive credentials that are stored?
This is where Pulumi ESC comes in. It's a centralized secret management solution. So it encrypts your secrets at rest, and that is key so that they're not being stored in an unencrypted state. Nobody can get a hold of them. And then also it integrates seamlessly with so many different secrets managers. You can use it with HashiCorp Vault. You can use it with AWS Secrets Manager. You can use it in Kubernetes. And this is really nice. It gives teams the flexibility to use the preferred tools, but you get to have a great security posture because you're storing everything encrypted at rest in Pulumi ESC. It's highly secure and it's easy to use. I recommend everybody check it out.
So kind of switching gears from security slightly, how do teams deal with the scaling of their infrastructure while maintaining all the things we've talked about so far?
Scaling it's kind of where these DIY solutions start to fall apart a little bit because as your organization grows, your IC setup needs to grow with it, right? This affects everything. It affects team onboarding. It affects just more complex infrastructure that you now need to manage because you're bigger. And the problem is that if you've built all these ad hoc tools or processes and you kind of have tribal knowledge with how you roll out cloud updates, it's hard to share that. New teams have to either reinvent how things are done for themselves or they need to learn what you've done. And it creates inconsistencies and it also can just create potential security gaps.
And that all changes when you're using Plumie Cloud, right? One of the most striking examples is Materialize, a customer of ours. They managed to cut their developer onboarding time by 75% after switching to Plumie Cloud. And this isn't just a minor improvement, it means engineers are able to get up to speed, start contributing projects in a quarter of the time. In today's world, that kind of efficiency is a huge advantage.
Another notable example is Unity. They reduced their deployment times actually from weeks to just hours using Pulumi. It was a 10x improvement in deployment speed. Just think about what that means. Like a 10x improvement is huge. It means they can push out new features, they can push out updates to their gaming platforms, and they can do it at 10x the speed. They can respond to player needs and stay ahead of the competition just much more effectively because they have that quick iterations. I don't think it's just about speed. There's also just improvements that you get along with that and security, reliability, scalability.
These two case studies really bring together everything we've talked about. How do you deal with these hidden costs, operational excellence, security, scaling? I think we've covered a lot today, Adam. What are the key takeaways for teams facing this decision, just so we can kind of wrap it up? And
The most crucial takeaway from my perspective is just understanding the true cost. Don't forget about all of these other things. You need to consider the ongoing operational challenges of state management. You need to understand just the maintenance cost, how you maintain robust security practices, and just the complexity of scaling a solution as your organization grows.
yeah, exactly. That's my thoughts as well, right? Plumi Cloud addresses these challenges. We give you a managed service to tackle all these complexities on your behalf. We just give you the flexibility to focus in on your business value, deliver that value to your customers ultimately.
I mean, that's what you're there for, right? To deliver business value. So we're trying to help with that. And you can try this all out today. Go to pulumi.com/start and check it out. And thank you for watching.